So what's pinging? Pinging is basically you excite some kind of audio effect with some short burst of noise. So for instance, if we have a short burst of noise with a kick here, a kick drum, and we take some kind of note clip here, and let's see, we go here with a C3. Let's do something like this. And then we make the sound super short. And then you take, for instance, an EQ. You have your EQ plus. Take one band and make the Q pretty steep. And then you can decide here with the frequency, which tonality or which note you want to hit. So we can switch in Bitwig Studio to the frequency of C3. So we can type in C3 in the filter band here. And it switches here to the band of C, or exactly to the frequency of C3. And then we can use here key track modulator and modulate. It's based here on C3, as you can see. With a spread of 64 steps, we can here modulate by exactly 64 steps. And now we can basically play a melody with this. And not only this, you can also modify a bit how it sounds by changing the input burst here slightly. So it's kind of a synthesizer. And you can really take any noise burst you want to use. Can be some vinyl crackling or some hand claps, just a short burst of something. And you can use any kind of audio effect. It doesn't need to be an EQ. And I want to show you a bunch of devices you can use for this kind of technique. Of course, there's also a specific device exactly for this kind of method or for this kind of synthesis is in Bitwig Studio. For instance, we have here the, let's remove this. We have the resonator bank, which does exactly that. It's basically an EQ with steep Q curves here, or bell settings. So when we dial down all the bands here to 0, and just leave the first one in, you can see we have here frequency, the center frequency. So we can dial in C3 like before. And we have here Q setting and a gain. And then we have here, let's play this. And the key track is built into this device. We can just increase here the key tracking. If you want to have this one octave higher, then you can go here to C4. And you can also use the other bands as well, of course. And dial in your harmonics you want to use for this kind of sound. So the resonator bank is perfectly made for this. We have also here some global settings. If you have a lot of bands used here and you just want to switch everything one octave lower, you can do this here with the global knobs, which apply to all settings in here, right? We have also glide, nice. And you have a mix knob. You can use this here maybe on a, I don't know, drum loop or something like this and bring in some tonality with this. We also can do something like, yeah, maybe I show you this here quickly. So let's search for a drum loop. That's not a drum loop. Let's see what I have here. Oh yeah, it's a drum bass loop. Nice. Maybe go to 170 here. Yeah, let's increase here the volume a bit. Something like this. And we put this here on the audio track. So this sounds now like this. Without. Yeah, let's make it a bit longer. So it plays exactly the notes you are dialed in here, but the key tracking is on and there's no notes on this track. So what you can do is you can bring in the notes from the track above. So we use a note receiver. And we can bring in the notes from the E-kick. Yeah. It's not beautiful, but it's maybe make this a bit slow. So something like this, but it's not exactly pinging. It's just using a drum loop, right? And yeah, using a filter to enhance the resonance, bring in some tonality. But this is what you can do. So back here to our E-kick, which is still just a short burst. Nice. So you can also use, of course, here filters, where we have here a steep bandpass. Use high, much more resonance here. And resonance is just another word for increasing the feedback. Maybe double click here. When you double click, you can see the cutoff frequency changes to C3, as you can see here down below. Which is nice because now we can use here the key track, so we can activate this. I have this here by default on the filter bank, so you can just, it's already, the modulation is already dialed in here. By exactly 64 steps, because we have a spread of 64 with the root note of C3. So now we have the same thing as before, as in the resonator bank with the key tracking dialed in. Or we can also go one octave higher. So right, can make melodies with the kick drum. Not also the filter works, also the EQ2 works too, if you want to. The EQ2 works too, yeah. C3, oh, C3. So every EQ works that has some kind of Q setting, and you can... So we can use EQs, we can use filters inside Bitwig Studio. We can also key track filters and EQs. So we bring in melody lines if we want to, but we can also use something like the new devices here. For instance, the Phaser Plus, right? There's a feedback setting. Look at this one here. So the only thing you have to change is basically here the speed setting, because the speed setting changes the frequency all the time. So to delete the speed setting here, you can dial it down, which brings it down to 0.01 Hertz, which is probably okay. But you can also go here to the left side in the inspector and say manual override, which switches this here to a mod knob, where you have to apply some modulation here to yeah, do the modulation for yourself, basically, with a modulator inside Bitwig Studio in the panel. So we just leave this alone here, and we dial in your different modes of the phaser to see what sounds good. Hey, sounds like a glass bottle. Let's see if we can bring in here some key tracking for this knob, because it's in percentage. The unit is percentage, it's not frequency or notes or anything. So we have to, yeah, we have to fiddle around a bit. So let's use an EQ here at the end and see. So we search for C3, it's our center note. Let's see. Dial this in. So this should be here. Maybe we also use here. Let's duplicate this here and use a polysynth. We can hear if it sounds the same. Yeah, kind of. Just tune this a bit. So now that we have C3, we can introduce here a key track and modulate this. And we don't know how much we need to modulate this here, because there is no unit and it doesn't make really sense. So maybe focus here on C4. So let's see if we can hit actually C4. Just as a reference. It's over here. So we need to apply a bit more. I'm trying to hit the same note. Let's go to C5 here. Let's see how this sounds. Octafier. C5 is here. Just need the first note. That should be fine. So now we should have here it's probably also that all these kind of different modes here have different settings for how much you need to dial in the key tracking and where the center frequency is. So you have to probably tune all these modes differently. But you can do it. It's possible, right? And you get some kind of weird sounds out of it. So it sounds like a glass bottle, right? Oh, this also changes the pitch here. And it also has some kind of delay or latency to it, so you have a small little glide. It's probably because you have feedback and you change the delay on the feedback, and then the feedback loop basically needs a bit of time to get the new pitch on each iteration, right? So you have the small little pitch up or pitch down. So it's not like an instrument you can play. But hey, you can use it as a sound design tool. I mean, you could go in here and maybe Let's say we really like the sound, and you can say bounce post fader. You get a new sample here. Then you get the sampler of Bitwig Studio, and you can use the files here, which gives you this, this sample in here. And I really like to track this out from here, because when I track it out from here, it doesn't rebounce. When I drag this one in here, you can see it Bitwig bounces the clip again for some reason. So I really like to drag this out from here. Dive it in the sampler. And now we can use in the sampler here the key tracking by right-clicking detect root key. And it says E4 with 3 cents in there. So let's see how this sounds. Let's see if it's actually if the pitch is correct by adding a polysynth. Kind of, right? Yeah, it's the same pitch. So yeah, you can use it as a sound design tool here. So we can ping some random sounds and then feed it through the FX device and see what comes out of it. So it's not like you can use the e-kick here. You can also use, like I said, samples. You can clap your hands. You can crackle some paper, or I don't know, some random noise. Vinyl samples also work, and then see if it sounds good. Maybe I have some vinyl samples here on my hard drive. I'm not sure if I found one. Vinyl crackle. Yeah, there's a lot of noise in there. So let's use this here. Maybe crank up the volume. Yeah, there's a lot of small little peaks in there. Nice. So we can use here, what did I use here? The phaser. Okay, let's use the phaser. Yeah, maybe you can use the tool device here, bringing down the volume, and then we're using a follower, envelope follower. Then just bring out the cracks here. Maybe use a hard clip on there. Oh, I need to remove the key tracking here. Oh, let's use the key tracking here and use the notes from above. Oh shit, I deleted them. Okay, so let's go here for something like this, and we mute all the things on there. And in here, we use the note receiver to get the notes from the track above from here, right? So E-kick, nice. It's too much glide. Can I use here one note? You can maybe use it to extract the rhythm from the vinyl crackle here. So yeah, this is just a short excursus with using vinyl samples. So what else? So we can use EQ, we can use filters, we can use the resonator bank, we can also use something like phaser or flanger. Actually, did I use the flanger? didn't, right? So let's use a kick again. Yeah, no, I didn't use the flanger. I've used the phaser. Oh, short click. Nice. One way to also make this click much shorter, because you can still hear there's a kick drum, is to use a tool device, which exactly is the same trick I showed before with the vinyl crackle. But here on default on my tool device, there's always this note sidechain on it, because I use it for sidechaining kick drums or sidechaining bass with the kick drum all the time. The modulation is just not applied. It's just in there. So when there's no note sidechain here defined, you take the notes from the from in front of the device, or from the note clip here. So we can see we get here the notes in from the note clip. So to make this sound even shorter here from the kick drum, we just dial down the volume to infinity, so it's completely quiet, and then we dial in here the volume, and then we can decide here with the decay how long. It's actually like a transient shaper, kind of, or a gate that uses notes as an input. So now we have pretty short clicks. You can also change a bit the volume a bit more. This would probably super nice for creating some tuned percussion. So let me dial this in here. So maybe we take some multiple samples. So we have here one, here. So let's run with 4 samples. Let's call the tuned 1. This one is tuned 2. This one is tuned 3. Tuned 4. Bam. And now we just modulate. What do we modulate here? Maybe random. This one a bit. And we only change the modulation when the note comes in. Right, so we have something like this, and then we can do, so we have names here, defined names, so we can right click and say bounce. We have 4 new samples in here. Can go to the files tab here. We have now 4 samples in here. We go to the sampler, we say create new multi-sample, and now we can just put these in here. We have now 4 samples. And now we right click on here, the text root key, G3, right? Text root key, text root key, text root key, okay. So now we should have here multiple samples in there. Distribute velocity equally. So let's use different samples for different velocity settings. This is what we can do. And then we can play on the keyboard here. And with different velocities, we use different samples, and each sample has a different tonality to it, a slightly different tonality to it. We can go completely wild with this, which is what I really like, of course. Oh yeah, let's modulate this. This goes way beyond the tutorial right now, but I'm really like this. So do the same here. We go for hold. We go for retrigger on note. It's even stereo. So maybe we also use a super massive here. Not too much. Just a short delay. So now we duplicate this here, we make more of these, of course. This is 5. This is 6. 7. Yeah, I can create nice multi-sample instruments with this. So let's bounce. So everything is bounced. We can go back to a second track, use a sampler. Create new multi-sample. Oh, I deleted the track, shit. Create new multi-sample. Bring all these tunes here in, or samples in. Root key. I'm not sure if you can do this in batch, so like select all and then take root key for all samples at the same time. I'm not really sure. Be nice. Okay, so now we have this. We distribute by velocity. So each velocity gets a different sample. Nice. So now you have a nice tuned percussion instrument. Be nice maybe to have some longer tonalities, some more tails on it, but for now it's oh yeah, we need to change the velocity here. So use randomize. So it's a nice sound design tool, at least to create pinging in Bitwig Studio, and you can see it leads to new instruments you can build in the sampler. So another device we can use is, of course, the comp filter. So let's delete here the flanger, supermassive. Let's stick with this short burst here. Nice. And use the comp filter. And the comp filter has feedback here. You have it at 100%, the feedback never ends. So it should be perfect for creating drone sounds or, yeah, I don't know. Something along those lines. Maybe use a random mod here. And slightly change frequency here, just a tad. Can we go to C3? Oh, it's the middle position. you can also use your key track. Let's try this out. Oh, it's also not really matched here with the. You have to also try it out here. What kind of note you hit here? So you have to tune it for yourself. But you can do it. Also negative feedback. You can also just use, without the comp filter, you can just use Valhalla Supermassive, which gives you this reverb. But you can also use a pretty short delay of 0 milliseconds, or maybe 0.2, and a really high feedback. Maybe change the mod here, the modulation amount. I also made a video about this, how you can use the Supermassive to as a resonator bank or as a resonator, or how you can use it for a physical modeling. So at the end of the video, I want to give you some examples how you can create some nice clicks or exciter sounds. I showed you here the whole video using the e-kick and the tool to make it pretty short, or the sound pretty short. There's also a possibility of using the grid. So you can use the poly grid here, and you remove basically everything. You use an envelope, and you can use the noise module here. You have white noise, pink noise, and you can also switch it to stereo. So make it short, pink noise maybe, get this out here, and you get a noise out. So we can use then here, maybe what we use the resonator again. Resonator bank. Dial everything down. Bring this here to C3. Filter tracking on. And let's paint in here some kind of melody. Reverb. When you change the noise, also changes a bit how the sound sounds. So using the noise here from the grid is an easy method. We can also use, for instance, something like a saw. But instead of using the sound here, maybe let's dial it down here. What's the best method of using a pitch here? Go all the way down. Basically just get, you know, the switch here from 0 to 1 in the saw wave. It gives you this really hard crack. So if you don't want to use here external devices from Bitwig Studio, you can also completely do this all in the grid. So we have here switched off the pre-chords of the sawtooth, so when I play some notes on the keyboard, nothing really happens. We use here basically a fixed pitch, which is E-7. So what you can do now is here, of course, using the comp filter in here, which has pitch tracking enabled. So you get this all for free. You can dial in on the resonance. That doesn't sound right. So you probably need a high cut, high pass. You probably want to have this over here. So this is basically like, you know, using Core Plus Strong or physical modeling, what I showed you in some of my earlier tutorials. You can also use here the flanger inside Bitwig. I'll use a mixer. We need 0 speed. Oh, we need to re-trigger maybe here? Yeah, let's re-trigger the sawtooth. And there's no pitch tracking on here, so we have to do this for ourselves, of course. We can do this by using a pitch in modulator. Probably not correct here, but you get the idea. Another technique is, instead of using a click sample, is using basically nothing. So we have here a lot of filters inside the grid. I'm not really sure it works also with the filter in here, but you can try this in a moment. For instance, if you take here the XP filter, and we are in mono mode here in the grid, and we just hook up the filter to the output. Right, so there's no input and I don't press any buttons, nothing. It's just the filter hooked to the output here and we are in mono mode, so the voice is active. All we need to do is using here a steep filter, for instance, a bandpass for 12 dB per octave. And we can just increase here the resonance over this magic line. And you can see we can hear a sine. We can change the frequency of the sine with this one here, right? So if you increase the resonance on some of the devices just high enough, then the pure floor or the noise, the floor noise or input noise is enough to excite basically the filter and gets you a tonality or a tone. And I think in older synthesizers where you just had one oscillator and the filter, people use that to create or to use basically two oscillators. So they use the filter with a high resonance as one oscillator and the oscillator itself as one oscillator. So you can, it's basically a super old trick. If you want to have more rhythmic stuff, then of course you can use, for instance, something like the gate device here, which outputs just clicks if you want. Oscillator switches to slow mode, so we have here like these kind of shapes here. You can switch this now to trigger, which gets you, or pulse, gets you these shorter things here. Maybe you can also use a trigger. You can increase the trigger speed, something like this. And we can use this as an audio input to the filter. Oh, we can use a clock quantizer. Let's try this. And then we need something to change here, of course, the frequency. So we take a quantizer and we maybe use a randomize. Attenuate. Sample and hold. We can also use maybe the gate length here. To make the burst even shorter. Let's try a different filter here. It's like, you know, it's not so steep, so you get more of these clicks through. So it's a perfectly reasonable synthesizer or, yeah, patch to create sounds. Delay is always nice. We maybe can also use here multiple of these. There's a mixer. And delay one path slightly. And use a different filter here. Maybe go to C4. Maybe you can also use this for kick drum here. Let's see. Maybe remove here this. We have no pitch input. We can use the audio input. Maybe a bit distortion. Yeah, so just by using filters, yeah, no oscillator and just gate signals as an input, it's super easy to create something in the grid. So the last trick is, yeah, using a triggers here. Triggers module like before, like in the patch before. And this trigger uses the audio output here going through this AD and also the same signal as opening the AD. So you get this click. And I want to show you that you can use actually the delay 2 or delay 1. Let's use delay 1. With the feedback. Right, you get something like this. But you can also go here to milliseconds. You get something like this. You can't go lower than 10 milliseconds, but it's still enough. To create some sounds. It's also delay 2, just feedback. But you can also don't go lower than 10 milliseconds. But we get something out of it. So let's modulate this here. So we get a different sound. And we can sample this. Of course. And now we can do the same trick as before. We can put this whole feedback thing into the sampler. Maybe loop this bit here. Maybe find out the root key. And we pitch it all the way down, -24. We can use it as a synthesizer. So feedback is always nice, and you can use it in all kinds of situations. It's helpful and a nice sound designing tool, at least. Thanks for watching, guys. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you liked the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.